So, Avatar: The Last Airbender has been added onto Netflix recently. So, like, basically everyone else in America have been binge watching the show in order to avoid the depressing, ever sucking black hole that is reality. The last time I really watched the show was back when it was airing, like 2007, 2009ish or so. I remember it being great, but this recent rewatch has me falling in love with it all over again and, like, really appreciating so much about it that I didn't notice when I was younger. And there are so many things that I could talk about. The show's discussion of the weight and burden of war, the way it balances comedy with tense interpersonal drama, its incredible characterization and diverse cast. Its critique of nationalism and imperialism is pretty relevant. But the aspect that I want to focus on for a little bit is Toph Beifong, because she is such a goddamn badass throughout the show, and I've always loved her as a character. And something I find really cool about her is she exists as the prime example of what it is that leftist groups mean when they call for diversity and representation in media. Anytime someone like Anita Sarkeesian makes a video asking for better representation of women in media, people crawl out of the woodwork and complain that feminists want to ruin games or movies or whatever thing that is that they feel like is being attacked. But the kind of things that feminists and other advocacy groups are fighting for is more characters like Toph. And no one has a problem with Toph. For as long as I've been on the internet, I've never seen the kind of vile, forced diversity, leftist agenda spewing bullshit that can be seen for so many other similar characters in media. And I think the reason is obvious. It's because everyone can kind of just agree she's awesome. She's a badass, she's cool, she's funny, she's strong. I think when people who are against better representation imagine what it is that they think feminists want, they create these terrible straw man characters that they assume feminists are going to force every character to be, when in reality, they want more characters like Toph. So I want to argue here that if you like Toph, then you should also support actively creating more diverse characters and better representation in media, because doing so leads to better characters like her. And I really want more characters like Toph. So there are two main attributes of Toph that would put her into poorly or underrepresented groups in media. She's blind, and she's a girl. And so I want to address both of these individually and talk about how the writers use these attributes and how they contribute to Toph as a character. So let's start with Toph's blindness. When we first meet Toph, it's in an earthbending fighting tournament where she moonlights as the blind bandit. The characters make some remarks about her blindness, but then they just quickly move on to watching her fight, admiring her skill. There's no lengthy explanation for why she's blind. There's no sob story to make the audience pity her. Just acknowledgement of her condition, and then they just move on. The writers avoid one of the first major traps that many writers fall into when creating disabled characters. They don't make Toph a person to be pitied because of her disability. Many times a character with a disability is introduced really just to make the audience feel sorry for them, to feel sad with how hard their life must be. This completely denies the reality of what living with a disability is like, and is mostly the narrative of non-disabled people towards the disabled, not an accurate representation of those people. Toph is blind, this is a fact, but it's not a thing that the show dwells on. It just is. Toph doesn't mope around all woe is me about her situation, bemoaning cruel fate that she has to live with. She just goes on living life, same as anyone. They also don't go the other way and completely negate her disability. Another trap that can occur is when a character has a disability of some kind, but then gets something in return that completely nullifies their disability, making the whole thing moot. While she is still blind, Toph can get around because she has learned to use vibrations in the ground and her earthbending to feel the world around her. But this doesn't alleviate her disability. She can't read things on paper, she can't anticipate things that are in the air, and on some surfaces, her senses become fuzzy. She's learned how to live with her lack of vision in the same way that someone would have to learn to live while in a wheelchair, but it's not a negation of her disability. The subject of Toph being blind isn't a taboo subject to either the cast or to Toph herself. There's not really a stigma among the cast surrounding her blindness. Toph will routinely make jokes based on the fact that she's blind, such as praising her friends' terrible art or laughing at them when they complain about being lost in the dark. There's a natural level of embarrassment of the cast when they realize their own faux pas, but it's just a moment and then everyone moves on. Toph is never the target of the jokes, but is merely the subject, and there is a distinction. It's made light of in the same way as if I joked about a friend having really crazy messy shaggy hair, or about me having really crazy messy shaggy hair. The jokes are never made at her expense, and they fit into who Toph is. She's blunt, direct, and sarcastic, and all of her interactions are like this, so it's only natural for her to joke about her condition in the same way. Being blind contributes to her characterization. We are shown how being treated as blind and helpless molded her into a person that wanted to be independent, and why she resists assistance. How restrictions and limitations made her into a girl who wanted freedom above anything else. Her blindness is never presented as some terrible problem that she wants cured. It is instead part of her growth and development as a character, in the same way that every character has problems and beliefs that they must work through and grow from. It informs her background and her decisions, but doesn't define her character.
No, thank you for what you said. It helped me.
Toph is also a girl, and we can similarly see how this identity informs her actions and beliefs. None of the main cast treat her in any meaningfully different way because she's a girl. None of them ever doubt her abilities or call upon any sexist rhetoric to dismiss her outright. She's treated as she should, equal in worth and on the merits of her skill and character. There's never a time where it's even implied that being a girl has any negative influence on her aptitude or ability. Often in media, women are relegated to more side or supportive positions. They rarely get to have active participations in combat or violence the way that male characters do. But Toph is a dominating force on the battlefield. She constantly demonstrates her proficiency with utilizing the environment and her surroundings. She's every bit as capable as any of her male allies, and there's never a need for the show to make a big deal about this. It never goes all, "Hey, look at me! Toph is a girl, but she's just as good as the boys. Aren't we so progressive?" It does a great job of showing and not telling us. Her allies often depend on her, and she is an essential and valuable member of the gang. There's a little mini episode where Katara and her go to a spa, and they have a sort of a stereotypical girls' day out, and we get to see how femininity and traditional gender norms informs Toph's self-image. Some local girls mock her makeup and her looks after they have their whole day together, and we can see the wind just taken out of her sails. She talks to Katara about how she relates to beauty about it. Because she is blind, she can't judge people based on their looks. Instead, she has to judge them based on her character. And she is self-assured in who she is. But we still get to see her mourn. Those girls' comments still hurt. She still wants to be pretty and beautiful. And she is. And Katara tells her as much. Toph has actively chosen to reject these standards of femininity that was placed on her. But she is still to some degree held to a standard of beauty that she can't even see. Toph is great because she gets to exhibit a lot of traits that are frowned upon, quote unquote, by patriarchal society. She's loud, brash, she's physically strong, she's tough. She has power and she carries herself with authority. She's incredibly confident and self-assured. She proclaims herself the greatest earthbender in the world. And never within the world of Avatar is she discouraged from being any of these things. She's proud of herself and her abilities, and she has every right to be. She gets to be a beacon and an icon for women, that they can feel strong and confident, and that they should get to feel good about those things. Often women are told directly or indirectly that these traits are unbecoming or unladylike, and that they shouldn't be these things. Women are soft, dainty, and passive, they are told. But that's lame and stifling and completely untrue. Women can be whatever they want to. Men can be all those things. Why couldn't they? I think the key to her writing and why she works as a character is that being blind and being a girl informs her character, neither defines her. She isn't the disabled character or the token girl of the group. They are attributes that help us understand why she thinks or acts a certain way, but they're only a part of her. Her steadfast, confrontational nature, her longing for friends, or her desire to be free are as integral to her character as anything else. And by using those traits well and exploring them respectfully, the writers were able to create a unique, interesting, and memorable character. I don't know of any other characters who are quite like Toph. She doesn't fit cleanly into any tropes or stereotypes. The writers can create jokes, situations, and drama that can only be done with a character who is blind, or with a girl who is confident in herself. An increase in representation leads to even more unique and unexplored areas and creates better narratives and stories because of it. How many hilarious situations or dramatic story beats exist that have never been explored because we rarely see disabled characters in media, and an even smaller number are represented well? When creators expand the limits of the characters they can use in their stories, everyone wins. The stories become better, the world becomes more inclusive, and the audience gets even better art to enjoy. So please, if you can, make more characters like Toph. I really love Toph. Hey, thanks for watching. A bit of a shorter one this time. I was actually a little hesitant to make this, because being a guy championing a character as a feminist icon is maybe a tad ironic. I would encourage you to go and listen to other feminist writers and media critics such as Anita Sarkeesian, Susan Faludi, or someone like Lindsay Ellis or ContraPoints, as they are the people who have much more to say and they can talk about the subject from a first-hand perspective in a way that I obviously cannot. Also, if you didn't know, The Last Avatar also has comics, graphic novels, and a spiritual successor called The Legend of Korra that you can also go and enjoy once you finish the show on Netflix. So go do that if you need a fix. If you liked the video, you can click the little button that says like on it. You can subscribe. And if you didn't like it, well, you can click that like button and subscribe. That'll show me. Find something to appreciate and improve your life today, no matter how small, and I'll see you in the next one.